So I have decided that after the 4th of July, we should go to the Statue of Liberty and maybe we should make a uniting speech there. I think that would be absolutely fantastic. Americans love the Statue of Liberty.
This is CNN with a breaking news report. Hi, I'm Anderson Cooper, and we are now realizing that Donald Trump is going to be speaking soon at the Statue of Liberty, which, if you haven't noticed, the Statue of Liberty is a racist monument. The Statue of Liberty is a woman. Why isn't it a man? We don't actually know what gender she is, and people always assume that she is a lady. So we need to tear down the Statue of Liberty.
You know what? That Statue of Liberty speech was absolutely fantastic. I think next I'm going to talk about maybe something very American, like apple pie. Everybody loves apple pie.
This is CNN with another breaking news report. Hello again. This is Anderson Cooper, and we are now going to talk about the racist history behind apple pie. Did you know that apples were picked by former slaves? It's true, and now Donald Trump is praising apple pie.
Okay, that's it. We're just going to have a bunch of puppies come to the White House. Everybody loves puppies. Maybe that will unite America. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm really trying to unite America. So let's bring on the puppies over to the White House.
This is CNN with another breaking news report. Hello, this is Anderson Cooper. Again, we are here to tell you that puppies are racist. Really? Did you know that puppies are misgendered all the time? That's sexist. That's terrible. And they should be banned. Okay, we should just ban puppies. Everything that Donald Trump does should just be banned.
Okay, I don't think there's any winning with these people.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Kyle Dockery with the Dockery Docket. We are here with our very 33rd episode of the Dockery Docket. I'm excited to be here, and I hope that you are excited to be here as well. So today we are talking about something that is very, very important to our nation's history, our country's history, and something that we as a people need to realize does not need to come down. Today, we are talking about Mount Rushmore, which is more than just a sculpture. It is a national monument. Every postcard from South Dakota has a picture of Mount Rushmore because it is so popular to that region. And maybe when you think about America, you think of different monuments that we have all across our land. You may think of the Statue of Liberty. You may think about Washington, D.C. You may think about natural elements like Yellowstone National Park, or maybe even the Grand Canyon. And of course, a lot of people think of Mount Rushmore. It is a staple in American culture, as it commemorates four very important presidents: Washington, Jefferson, and Lincoln. Each one had a story, and each one was important in the finding and the progression of the country, of the United States of America. So when we are starting to talk about the different destruction of different monuments, like we've seen over the past couple of weeks, like the ones of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson that we talked about in Dockery Docket 31, make sure to go check that out. It wasn't long until there was a call from the radical left that it was time to completely blow up Mount Rushmore. Just get rid of it because it is a horrible, horrible thing. These calls expanded when Donald Trump decided that he wanted to make a speech and do fireworks right in front of the national monument. This would be a uniting speech to a nation that is struggling with the idea of destroying our history. But to the left, it was the worst idea ever. So Trump had this grand old plan to speak right before the 4th of July, right in front of the national monument of Mount Rushmore, and just talk about the presidents and how we don't want our history to be destroyed. So before we jump into that, Trump speaking at the Mount Rushmore, let's first take a look at the history of Mount Rushmore and why there are calls to take it down. Well, the statue was created by Gustavus Borglum, who in the 1920s had an idea to create a monument to represent 4 American presidents that he thought represented the major accomplishments in the American story. And this is why he used Washington, Jefferson, Roosevelt, and Lincoln. However, the history of the creator of this amazing monument was a little sketchy, as it was reported by the New York Times that Mr. Burglum formed strong bonds with leaders of the KKK and participated in their meetings in part to secure funding for the Stone Monument project. So of course, this means that we just have to tear it down, all this artwork that we have, every single past president. If the creator is bad, then we just have to completely get rid of it, just destroy it all apparently. And I mean, this guy may have been a terrible person, but does that mean that we have to take down such a beautiful monument? And to me, honestly, no. So as many of you may know, it wasn't just the creator that people were upset about, but they were also upset about the people that were etched into the actual stone. New York Times claimed that these titans of American history have a complicated legacy. Washington and Jefferson were slaveholders. Roosevelt actively sought to Christianize and uproot Native Americans as the United States expanded. Professor Smith said he was a racist. Along with this, the article reads that although Lincoln was behind the Emancipation Proclamation, a move some have characterized as a reluctant and late, he has been criticized for his response to the so-called Minnesota Uprising, in which more than 300 Native Americans were sentenced to death by a military court after being accused of attacking white settlers in 1862. Along with this, many people have called for the destruction of Mount Rushmore because it is on Native American land. And now all of this is just horrible stuff. It's bad that Washington and Jefferson were slave owners. It's bad that Teddy Roosevelt tried to uproot Native Americans. It's bad that Abraham Lincoln stopped a certain protest by having Native Americans killed. That's all bad. But are there some good qualities that these men have? And now, usually, when we put up different monuments to commemorate people, we usually point out a good in that person. George Washington was the very first president of the United States. Doesn't he deserve to be remembered? Jefferson wrote our founding document, the Declaration of Independence. Doesn't he deserve to be remembered? Roosevelt was probably one of the most environmental presidents that we have ever had, and he created natural forests. Shouldn't he be remembered? Abe Lincoln ended the terrible sin in America of slavery. Doesn't he deserve to be remembered? The answer to these questions is yes. And it is horrible that the media will smear these men and their history. Along with this, yes, this is Native American land. And it is a terrible thing that we can't just pick up Mount Rushmore and move it somewhere else. And if we could, maybe we would. The fact is that, yes, these people from the past were not saints. They were sinners. But they did some great things for our country. And I think that a lot of people agree with that these men should be remembered for the good things that they've done. Now, it is interesting that all of these different stories, the whole New York Times article that I've been reading, came out right when Donald Trump decided that he was going to go speak at the National Monument for the 4th of July celebration. Because it is not like Trump was the very first president ever to visit Mount Rushmore. You know, he wasn't like, no other president has gone there, I'm gonna go there. And it is not like other presidents or political figures were sitting there like, oh no, I can't go to Mount Rushmore because it's racist and sexist and xenophobic and terrible to everyone. And the presidents that are etched into stone are also racist. No. In fact, former presidents were actually encouraged to go to Mount Rushmore, as it was a huge campaign spot. Of course it's a huge campaign spot, because it's a national monument. In fact, Donald Trump is going to be the 16th president to visit South Dakota. This list of presidents includes McKinley, Roosevelt, Taft, Wilson, Coolidge, Roosevelt, who has a picture right in front of the monument, just like Trump did. Along with this, Eisenhower, Kennedy, Nixon, Ford, Reagan, George H.W. Bush, who was there to commemorate the 50th anniversary of Mount Rushmore. Bill Clinton also made a visit with then First Lady Hillary Clinton. George W. Bush also spoke in front of the monument, just like Donald Trump did. Even Obama made an appearance at the monument. Bernie Sanders made an appearance as well, and he said that the monument was fantastic. It's a beautiful piece of American art. Okay? So, during all these times, the presidents, or the political figures, were never accused of being racist or going onto Native American land. Instead, they were celebrated. For example, CNN, back in 2008, praised Obama for going to the National Monument, saying Obama arrived there late last night and got a good look around Mount Rushmore. It's quite a sight if you haven't seen it, said CNN anchor Rob Marcelliano. Another broadcast said, Barack Obama is in South Dakota today. He arrived there last night. Take a look at this. He got a good glimpse of the majestic Mount Rushmore. Then, a few days later in this broadcast, CNN's Jim Acosta described Obama's visit to Mount Rushmore like this. He said that it's a fine campaign stop for a presidential contender looking to make history. Standing before Mount Rushmore over the weekend, Barack Obama was asked whether he sees his face joining the likes of Washington and Lincoln. So they wanted to put his face on Mount Rushmore. So let me get this straight. Mount Rushmore is this evil, terrible, racist monument, but they wanted in 2008 to put Barack Obama's face on there. That absolutely makes no sense to me. And this just falls straight into CNN's narrative. Obama going to Mount Rushmore is perfectly fine, perfectly great, majestic, if you will, and Donald Trump going to Mount Rushmore is absolutely terrible. Just listen to this reporter, Layla Santiago. I feel like she explains it perfectly what CNN is trying to encompass what Donald Trump is doing by going to Mount Rushmore. Here's the clip.
And Jake, kicking off the Independence Day weekend, President Trump will be at Mount Rushmore, where he'll be standing in front of a monument of two slave owners and on land wrestled away from Native Americans, told that be focusing on the effort to, quote, tear down our country's history.
All right, Layla Santiago with that report.
So clearly here we can see a double standard from the media, as they are attempting to label Mount Rushmore as this evil, racist place. And the only reason that they are calling it racist is because Donald Trump will be there, and they are trying to make him look bad. Honestly, I wish Trump would do this with every single monument that we have in America. I want Trump to go to the Statue of Liberty and see how CNN could warp it and be like, well, actually, the Statue of Liberty is racist. I wish that Donald Trump would go to Abraham Lincoln's memorial and watch the media spin that. Even the most lighthearted thing. Something that every single American likes. Maybe apple pie. You know, Donald Trump will be sitting in the Oval Office, he'll have an apple pie with him, and then the media will spin it and say, well, actually, apple pies are actually racist, so we can't eat those anymore. It's just incredible to me how the media can just spin different things to make everything look racist just because Donald Trump is doing something. President Trump should be able to go to the monument and make his speech just like all the other presidents and political figures that I mentioned earlier did. But of course, there had to be some crazy drama as the president of the Sioux tribe said that Trump was not welcome at Mount Rushmore because it would cause an uproar. And well, it did cause an uproar. Not on Donald Trump's part, but on these protesters' part, as they parked vans right in front of the entrance to Mount Rushmore, slashed the tires so people couldn't move the vans, and people could not get into the actual park. This is just absolutely ridiculous, and this all could have been avoided if the media would not have proclaimed that Mount Rushmore is this terrible, racist, miserable place. So, luckily, in the end, Donald Trump was able to give his speech to the nation. And to me, personally, it was a very, very good speech. And it was a very unifying speech as well. He talked about each individual person on Mount Rushmore and why they should be remembered and not to be destroyed or erased from history. He also talked about the radical left and how they want to get rid of American heritage and they want to change history. This is all 100% true. and the left does want to do that. Trump also mentioned Frederick Douglass and Martin Luther King many times. And he also mentioned how he wants to create a park. I believe it is in Washington, D.C., but I don't know if they've worked that out yet. But in this park, there will be a bunch of statues of what Donald Trump called great American patriots. This list includes John Adams, Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King, John Adams, Susan B. Anthony, Daniel Boone, Davy Crockett, Frederick Douglass, Amelia Earhart, Alexander Hamilton, Abraham Lincoln, Douglas MacArthur, George Patton Jr., Betsy Ross, Booker T. Washington, George Washington, and the Wright brothers. There are many more that will come from this list, but I think that this is a good start. And some people were upset about this idea of creating a big old monument for all of these different Americans, all these great Americans, because there were recent articles that came out and said that these protests of taking down different statues were only about Confederate statues. And now we can just debunk this really quick, because recently they've torn down Thomas Jefferson, who was not a part of the Confederacy, and George Washington, who was not a part of the Confederacy, and Frederick Douglass, who was an abolitionist. His statue also came down recently, and for some reason they tore down a 120-year-old elk statue. So I don't think that elks had anything to do with the Confederacy, but I will make sure for you viewers that I will look into that. Anyway, going back to Trump's speech, the issue is that if you watch the speech in real life, which I highly recommend that you do, you will see it as a uniting message. But if you just read the headlines from the news, then more than likely you will see a different story. The media was calling this speech racist and fascist and just dividing of people, and it was horrible and evil and blah, 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 blah. And I have to ask you, does this section of Donald Trump's speech sound racist, sexist, fascist to you?
We will never let them rip America's heroes from our monuments or from our hearts. By tearing down Washington and Jefferson, these radicals would tear down the very heritage for which men gave their lives to win the Civil War. They would erase the memory that inspired those soldiers to go to their deaths, singing these words of the battle hymn of the Republic. As he died to make men holy, let us die to make men free, while God is marching on. They would tear down the principles that propelled the abolition of slavery and ultimately around the world, ending an evil institution that had plagued humanity for thousands and thousands of years. Our opponents would tear apart the very documents that Martin Luther King used to express his dream and the ideas that were the foundation of the righteous movement for civil rights. They would tear down the beliefs, culture, and identity that have made America the most vibrant and tolerant society in the history of the earth. My fellow Americans, it is time to speak up loudly and strongly and powerfully and defend the integrity of our country.
All of Donald Trump's speech is basically just a lot of American patriotism. It's a lot of good things that every single president has said in the past. And it is something that everyone should be able to agree upon. And I really like that last part where it says that it is time to speak up loudly and strongly and powerfully and defend the integrity of our country. Because a lot of people have been saying, when these statues are starting to come down, where are the conservatives? Where are people who are willing to stand up for our rights to free speech? And that is a good question. Where are you? What are you doing? What can we all do? And that is a very, very important thing, and that's something that we should definitely think about. We don't need to be afraid of this mob anymore. We need to call out this mob because what they are doing is not right. It's un-American. And we also need to remember that America is a wonderful country. And yes, we have messed up. Yes, we have made some mistakes, but in the end, we have to remember our history, and this means that we should not try and tear down different monuments, especially the monument of Mount Rushmore. I just want to thank you all for listening to the Dockery Docket, for liking, subscribing, and sharing my content on social media. It truly means so much to me. It really does help this channel out, as I believe we are growing bigger and better than ever before. So continue to stay in touch by following me on social media. All that will be down in the description. And until next week, on Tuesday at noonish, like my mom always says, be good, be kind, be loving. Goodbye.